we are still uncomfortable with the criticism and dissent. Particularly, this is a natural instinct in South Asia. If a Tasliman Nasreen writes something,
Oh, yeah.
mullahs will come up. If Ambedkar writes something, the Hindus will come up, and we try to, defend ourselves. Say, look, government banned Tasliman Nasreen's book, so it has to ban this, and every communist is using the other one for his own purposes.
I would recommend an essay in the book The Human Rights of Dalits, which I edited, by Professor Shivnarayan Ray. He has drawn our attention to this fact, that is, you see, that is, we cannot criticize, if I am a Muslim, we cannot criticize the Allah or some of the doings of, Prophet, Then you bring a law like the obnoxious blasphemy law in Pakistan, Do you know that Bangladesh is now thinking of introducing that law? Introducing that law in Bangladesh means the minorities will be completely wiped out. Or a few Buddhists, a few Hindus, and a few Christians who have been left behind in Bangladesh, they will be. Because the main purpose of the blasphemy law is that minority property must be taken away by the majority people, the Muslims, And they have already thrown away the Buddhists from Bangladesh, Almost the entire Buddhist population from Bangladesh has come to Tripura state, which is known as Chittagong Hill Tract, people from Chittagong Hill Tract. I remember, I don't know if it would be appropriate, you will like this. I was in the University of Leeds during the Bangladesh war. So there were a very large number of students from East Pakistan at that time. And so they organized a function to celebrate the birth of Bangladesh. I was also invited to speak. So I spoke, I said, I am happy and I am only hoping that Bangladesh will be different from other South Asian countries, because Bangladesh has a different kind of past, namely a Buddhist past, a Baul past, not merely, and a Nazrul past, not merely Tagore past, but Nazrul Islam past. So, but the kind of thing that we see now in Bangladesh, I think, well, I now confess that I was wrong, because Bangladesh also is adopting the same, because when I read about it, in fact, I read about this by a journalist, written an article, which wrote an article for us, for the Radical Humanist, that the mullahs are pressing the government to introduce the blasphemy law. The blasphemy law exists everywhere in the world. It is not, but what happened in Pakistan is, Section 125 is the blasphemy law in our country also. So that but they introduced many other sections where they made the death penalty mandatory. That is, if a non-Muslim speaks a word critical of the Prophet, the mandatory punishment is death. Similarly, if the Ahmadiyas, and do you know that Ahmadiyas were declared non-Muslims not by Ziaul Haq, but by a great liberal like Bhutto. It is Bhutto, when he was the president of Pakistan, it is he who declared the Ahmadiyas as non-Muslims. As a matter of fact, Islamization in Pakistan started with Bhutto. Ziaul Haq only perfected it. Ziaul Haq brought all these sections where death penalty became mandatory. So now in Bangladesh also, they have started, they declared the Ahmadiyas as non-Muslims. And Ahmadiyas are the, as you know, they are the best of soldiers, best of scholars. But
it's the same question.
Same thing is existing in our country in a much bigger way. In India, it is in a much bigger way than it is in Pakistan, or than it is what going to be in Bangladesh.
But it's like, are you satisfied with the secular response in Asian subcontinent, like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, whoever are, whether they are strong voices or small voices or marginal voices, against the religious fundamentalism, or is the same kind of a liberal fad? As you call, liberalism is dangerous sometimes.
The secular voice in India is very weak. It is not articulate at all, and there is no secular movement in India. You see, if you want a secular state, then the first thing that you have to talk of is secular, that is, we have to have secular morality and not religious morality. So, in India we are practicing religious morality, but we declare that we are a secular state. So, these are a contradiction in terms, and even as secular intellectuals, they are also.
That means secularism and multiculturalism are two different issues, and what we opted for multicultural society, not a secular society.
No, actually, we are using this pluralism in a very wrong context. When we say ours is a pluralist society, we want to mean that ours is a tolerant society. So, pluralism and tolerance are being used interchangeably, and I suggest very wrongly, because a pluralist society need not be automatically a tolerant society. Yes, it is true. We have inherited pluralism, but we have not inherited tolerance.
But do you support a French kind of a law, which French government banned the religious science in the schools, the government aided schools? Do you support that kind of a secularism in India? Where French says we don't want any religious symbol in government agencies, government schools, government buildings. Do you think that kind of a secular approach we should have?
There will be again, that is empowering the state with arbitrary powers, which may lead to fascism, the birth of a fascist state. If we give the such powers to the state. The Soviet Russia tried, after the revolution failed there, but the church has come back in Soviet Russia with a vengeance. It is the Orthodox Church which is dominating in Soviet Russia today, and they tried to abolish religion. Communist Russia, you see, they failed. They did not succeed in abolishing religion.
In India, the state is buckling under every religious fanatics. You can change laws for appeasing the Muslim mullahs. You can allow the Sikh women not to wear helmet when it was made mandatory. So isn't it a fact that we always do that kind of a knee-jerk approach as far as dealing with the religious fundamentalism?
So that except the only difference between you and me could be that you may suggest obliquely that it is the state which should jump in these affairs. I am only suggesting no, it is the intellectuals, even if they are weak today, they must come together and have brainstorming sessions one after the other to tackle these issues. For instance, the kind of approach that in Pakistan, the mullahs are being tackled in Pakistan more by the human rights activists than by the state today. I was there a few years ago, I was there in Lahore, so I met many women activists, you see, and one of them was a chain smoker. So I said, how come, you see, in a Muslim society, are you? नहीं, के लिए हैबिट हो गया, अगर कैसे कर लिए, ये जो जियाउल हक के टाइम पर उन्होंने कहा कि Muslim women, they cannot drink in public, they cannot smoke in public, and burqa was reintroduced. So we took to the cigarette in protest. तो तब हम लोग उनको जियाउल हक को दिखाने के लिए हम लोगों ने सड़क पर सिगरेट पीना शुरू कर दिया. तो वो सिगरेट पीते पीते अब वो हैबिट हो गया. तो अब मेरे साथ ये हैबिट हो गया कि मैं तो ओरिजिनली आजम करके हूँ. माई फादर मदर दे केम फ्रॉम आजमगढ़ टू कराची. You are right, a girl from Azamgarh being a chain smoker, it is but it got into the habit while we started protesting. So that is the example I can give. For instance, the movement against death sentence in our country is not as strong as it is in Pakistan. Pakistan Human Rights Commission, which is a non-government organization, has been agitating against the death sentence for the last several years, even though the government there is persecuted, you see. So even if today we are weak, the intellectuals, we have no other option but to go on raising our voice and find out the answer to these questions outside the state intervention.
So, but we still talk rule of law.
Yes, rule of law is very, very important. Now, as you have given that using the helmet, it is a law in our country. Now, if the Sikhs, for instance, for some time the Sikhs came out that no, this law cannot be applied to the Sikhs. I did not. I wrote for the PUCL Bulletin also. I said I don't agree because this it is rule of law.
And I would always say, like a player like Navjot Singh Sidhu, who is playing cricket, or Maninder Singh, he would never refuse to wear helmet if he is facing Imran Khan or
Exactly.
somebody else. Then the God will never save him. Or isn't it the fact that we keep silent when we see minority fundamentalism, and that's why it's giving rise to the majority fundamentalism, majority community in India. Like we have recently a film, Sin, which has come. It's a Bollywood film, and there is the Catholic community in India is protesting against it because they say that it is against their culture, against their religion. In the film, a priest is shown to have an illegitimate relationship with a girl, and they say it is an attack to the Christian community. It's like that what happened in London this year, that a Sikh woman, Gurpreet Kaur, play,
I know.
and the Sikh objected to it. But I have heard very few voices in India protesting against it. Why is that? When this minority kind of a fundamentalism comes up, we keep quiet. And if there is some certain thing that comes up from the Hindu system, we all jump up and cry, and that gives a kind of strength to the RSS kind of.
Oh yes, yeah. A recent example, Calcutta Muslims. Do you know in Calcutta, the population ratio in Muslims and Hindus, there is 1 Muslim for 7 Hindus. That is the ratio. And so they raised a voice, some sections of the Muslims, against Sania Mirza because they objected to her putting on that dress while playing. But fortunately, amongst the Muslims, because the Hindus also were there, immediately leadership came up. They said, "Nahi, Sania Mirza has brought India on the top of the world in the field of tennis, and therefore, therefore we should applaud that and not decry her dress, and that she has to put on that dress, that is obligatory." So, and the Calcutta Muslim community started applauding Sania Mirza after that. It's true the Hindu intellectuals also were there while raising joined the Muslims. So that should be the kind of appreciation. I mean, I don't suggest that if we raise our voice against the Sikhs, the entire Sikh community will be against the Hindus. No, it will not be.
But we keep quiet on that.
Yes, but we must not fight shy of that, And that if the Muslims, for instance, I still remember a few years ago, I have a friend in Pakistan, Karachi, Mr. M.B. Nagri. He is a very well-known name in India because he was the Times of India correspondent, Pakistan correspondent for many years. and for some time before partition, he was for a short while associated with the Radical Democratic Party of Aman Roy. So I know him that way. So one day, we were coming from Calcutta together in same train, in same compartment. I was talking to him about the Quran. I said the Quran gives equality to women. He said it is all humbug. कुरान में कोई कहीं नहीं है कि a Muslim woman is equal to Muslim man. कहीं नहीं लिखा है. तो कहने लगे कहीं नहीं है. So he came to Delhi. Then I was in the Indian Social Institute. So I organized a lecture for him. तो मैंने कहा so I introduced him. I'm saying that he is one of the most progressive and highly educated Muslims I have ever come across. He lives in Karachi. So that's why I thought he would be. And the audience there in the Indian Social Institute there, the majority were Muslims there. And so I raised that topic. So I said I request Mr. Nagvi to speak about human rights of women in Pakistan. And he came down so heavily on the Quran. He says, कहते हैं कि आपके हिंदू इंटेलेक्चुअल जो है ना, उन्होंने हमारे बहुत नुकसान किया, क्योंकि उन्होंने ये उड़ाया कि कुरान में जो है ना, कुरान गिव्स इक्वल राइट टू वीमेन. कहते हिंदू दिस इज़ ऑल बंकम हम्बक. और मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है दो हाथ जोड़ के हिंदुओं से कि ये हम्बक जो है ना, ऐसा प्रचार ना करें. कि ये प्रचार करने के बाद कहते ये बुरखा, कहते कि बुरखा, कहते जो कहने लगा यू आर फ्रॉम बांग्लादेश, सो यू शुड नो कि इन चिटागांग एंड कुमिल्ला burqa is the most common thing, but you go to North Bengal, Rangpur and all that, you don't find any burqa. So it is again the cultural improvement that has been taking place amongst the Muslims by the Muslims. So that is going to happen, you see. So whatever we have achieved in Pakistan, it has been achieved by the Muslims and by our effort, not by the effort of progressive intellectuals outside the Muslim community, either in Pakistan or outside Pakistan. And I am Muslim, he said it openly. I have read the Quran so many times, and I have not, I don't know many things about the Quran. And a non-Muslim who might have read the Quran, pointing out to me, he said, you might have read the Quran only once, you know. And on the basis of your reading the Quran only once, and you pass judgment, which are at best I can say ex-cathedral. Yeah.
That's what I want to ask, like in our education system, because you have been involved with the human rights education also, and the University Grant Commission and NHRC joint effort for the human rights education. So what else our education system? We can't tell our children that there is a caste system, or we can't tell our children this is something wrong in our religious values. Can we?
No, हमारे किताब में नहीं, किताब है भी तो किताब को उठा देते हैं. I tell you, in my own family, it happened. My younger daughter, she one day comes home from her school. She read in a secular school, and she says, she asked her mother, कि हमारा caste कौन सा caste क्या है हम? तो my wife administrator said, how come? She said, you know what happened today? We had civics class, so there the caste system was being discussed. So after the class was over, so all the girls were asking one another, तुम कौन से जात के हो, तुम कौन से जात के हो? तो उन्होंने मुझसे भी पूछा, मैंने कहा मुझे नहीं मालूम. तो my wife told him that is the best answer. In future also, he said, I don't know. So how we become caste conscious, and the NCERT books, some of the books, NCERT books, have mentioned this, and those books have been decried, have been withdrawn, unfortunately. So in our textbooks, these facts are not mentioned. These are not taught to our children. So how can you know about our evil unless it is being taught, you know? So that is, you are right, the other education system.
What is the main challenge for the human rights movement in India?
In India, the main challenge is this societal violation of human rights. Unless the societal violation of human rights is tackled, no other human rights violations can be done away with.
So how do we do with this? Like, so international covenants or atrocities act?
International Covenant, Atrocities Act, but intellectual brainstorming session. That is one after the other. That must continue. Without that,
And we should be ready to challenge our past.
oh yes, absolutely.
What has been your most successful achievement so far in the human rights field?
My most successful achievement is one thing कि मैं PUCL में ये ह्यूमन राइट्स ऑफ दलित्स को इंट्रोड्यूस कर पाया इन्हें वेरी, क्योंकि विदिन 2 years after that the PUCL in their national conference they kept this subject, main subject for discussion, Dalit, after I started that. This is one. And second is that I succeeded in organizing the brainstorming session in Madras on the human rights of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. I am only suggesting that it is, if you go on writing, if you go on and discussing the intellectual discussion, then some results are bound to accrue. Otherwise, only depending on the UN or a conference like Durban, which I saw, we failed there miserably. I give you a very simple instance. We were deputed to, negotiate, to talk to other delegations and to support us in the UN. So I spoke to one British delegate. So I talked about caste system. He said, "What is the caste system?" I said, "Come on, you have not heard of that?" I said, "No." I said, "You people ruled over India for 200 years, more than 200 years, and you don't know what is caste system." I said, kind of thing. I said, "When you go back and you talk to your people, they will laugh at your ignorance, And this is the kind of thing. And I was not able to even bring the Bangladesh representative, Bangladesh government representative to support us.
You have been a humanist of Saab. I just wanted to draw your attention that despite we had a very strong materialist past, we had Lokayat Darshan, we have Buddhism, we had Kabir, we had Charvak, all these kind of legendaries. But today the humanist tribe in India is just, it's looking like a endangered species. So what is the reason?
In our country, humanism is juxtaposed only against religion. I suggest this is the Western approach. This Western approach, because it's true, in the West, Catholicism has played havoc. So any humanist movement in Europe or in USA will rise naturally, their number one enemy would be the Catholic Church. But in India, if I start from the assumption that my number one enemy is Hinduism, then I cannot succeed as a humanist.
Why?
It has to be, for instance, my number one enemy is in our countries, the absence of social democracy. That is the number one enemy. So everybody is celebrating today Lalu Prasad's defeat, you see. But I have been feeling very sad because one single contribution by Lalu Prasad Yadav is to bring about reasonable success in the field of social democracy in Bihar. That nobody recognizes. So the number one enemy in this country is the absence of social democracy. And this absence of social democracy arises out of the caste system, So any humanist movement in our country has to tackle the question of social justice, and social justice is intimately connected with social democracy. Nobody talks about this one simple thing, that political democracy can never succeed anywhere in the world without a very strong articulate social democracy. So that is how the humanist movement in our country should start. And Roy had given hint to this effect, but unfortunately Roy's followers.
What are the meeting point of humanism and human rights?
For instance, societal violation of human rights, the most important, this is one thing, and that materialism is the right approach for any human rights activist, like say amongst Dalits, or for instance the kind of thing we had, the kind of philosophy that Dr. Ambedkar had shown, or Fulke, had indicated. That is the meeting point, and they were very great human rights activists. I cannot think of anyone a more active human rights activist than Ambedkar or Phule in this country. So that is and our humanists in this country. As a matter of fact, I have been always wondering, the human rights movement in our country, their most important members should be the Dalits, because they have nowhere else to go except to a humanist philosophy, to a materialist philosophy. Because you bring God to them or you take them to God, they are finished again.
But that doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen.
Why?
And if it, I tried in a small way in this area, when the Babri Masjid was demolished. So in this area, I talked to these people, Muchi and all, they are my good friends. And when I fell ill, they are the people who first came to see me. And then I told them कि मैंने एक मुझे मैंने कहा यार क्या हुआ तुम लोगों ने ये बाबूजी ये बताओ, हमने इन लोगों को विजय कुमार मल्होत्रा का वोट दिया था राज करने के लिए, ये कहने के लिए थोड़ी कि जाके वहाँ मंदिर मस्जिद गिराओ, कि उनका काम थोड़ी है ये मस्जिद बनाना काम है मुल्लाओं का, और मंदिर बनाना है पंडितों का, ठाकुरों का, पुरोहित का, वो बनाया, सरकार के काम थोड़ी है। कि यहाँ तो सरकारी जो है ना उन्होंने ये शुरू कर दिया, कहने ये चल नहीं सकता. And I spoke in like that to many individuals like this, and then so every Tuesday, people, Hindus particularly, they go to temple, Hanuman Mandir. So one day I went there, I found Sitaram, my tailor, he was not there. So I asked his neighbor, the fruit stall, मैंने कहा सीताराम कहाँ है? कहने जी आज तो मंगल है, वहाँ गया, मंदिर गया, यहाँ कैलाश, ग्रेटर कैलाश में जो मंदिर है. तो मैंने कहा सीताराम को खाने को तो मिलता नहीं, उसको मंदिर में क्या काम है? मंदिर में तो अमीर लोग जाते हैं, जिनके पास बहुत रुपये है, उनका काम है मंदिर में जाना, इसका क्या काम है? So they all appreciated, And next time they said कि साहब ये बिल्कुल सही कहा आपने, अगले बार जो है ना ये मंदिर मस्जिद वाला बात करने वालों को वोट नहीं देना है. Like that, So it's not that people will not. But you see, even amongst the Dalits, for instance, you talk to them about Periyar, you are not going to be a popular man, because Periyar is no longer, the Dalits don't accept him as their leader or as their benefactor, although nobody else did as much for the cause, as Periyar did,
Every icon is turned casteist by the caste people, whether it is Ambedkar or Periyar or Phule. People know about their caste first and then follow them up later.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
What has been your regret, Dr. Saab? Is there any regret that you feel so far you have not been able to do, or you want to do?
My one regret has been that the failure in the Durban conference. that we were not able to put it on the agenda of the that the discrimination against the race in this country comes from caste and birth. That is a real great regret, because I think it is very correct, and we should have been able to make the UN leaders understand this issue.
What message would you like to give to the new youngs who are entering the human rights field or humanist movement?
Well, I am not so important to give any message, but I can only say that I try to practice what I say or what I have been writing all these years. Some of you may be familiar with the kind of writing, the kind of things that I say. There is no shortcut to having a new philosophy for India, for all for Hindus, Muslims, and for all, a philosophy, a progressive philosophy, which then would be followed by a social revolution, because no social revolution without a proper philosophy can ever succeed. We have the example French Revolution. The French Revolution, the encyclopedic movement, it is because of that the French Revolution succeeded. Unfortunately, we don't. So young people may not be able to bring about a philosophical revolution in this country tomorrow. But Ambedkar, you may say anything about him, but he did succeed in bringing a kind of philosophical revolution. For instance, his interpretation of Dhamma. Many Buddhist scholars attacked him, as you know, when he wrote that, saying that his Ambedkar is wrong and he is treading on dangerous ground. But he did it. So either you follow his interpretation of Nirvana, for instance, even the most orthodox, the educated Buddhists today would Nirvana in the way that the Hindus interpret Nirvana. But Ambedkar stuck to his ground. He says, no, Nirvana meant that is the karma, you get the result of your karma only in this world, not after death, and death is not mukti, or there is no transmigration of soul, and he stuck to his ground. I mean, he did not believe in transmigration of soul, and he did not believe in the kind of nirvana that is our Hindu philosophy has been teaching. So that is the kind of, so in a small way, Ambedkar. Another, Mahatma Phule also had started, but unfortunately didn't, to bring about this kind of anti-Brahmin movement in Maharashtra, at least in the political field, something like Bahujan Samaj, but he did not succeed, or maybe he did not have enough time to pursue that, Therefore, young people in our country must get involved with the younger people from the minorities and from the Dalits, and try to have brainstorming among themselves, how to, because if the society does not become a better society, then whether one is a Dalit or one is a upper caste, both are going to suffer ultimately, So that is the only thing. And to say the state will come to our rescue with regard to all these things, that is not, I don't believe in that.
So there was one article that I was reading by M.N. Roy, and he opposed state intervention in education. So do you support that education should be privatized? He says the state has no business to give its ideologies or impose its views on the children.
You see, when M.N. Roy wrote that, he had in mind what Hitler did in Germany, because M.N. Roy could not forget his own past, that is German past. Hitler there wanted to change the education system because he wanted a healthy woman to marry a healthy man, so that the healthy children could be born and they would become better soldiers. That is what Hitler tried to do. Roy was against state intervention in that context, because if the state intervenes, then it will bring only the philosophy, as for instance, as we have seen in the recent past, the NCERT, what the NCERT tried to do.
But
Now,
that's not a recent past phenomenon, Dr. Saab, because it has been always done by the state in the past also. Much before the BJP came to power, the Congress has been
doing that.
doing the same thing.
Yes.
So isn't it time now that education be kept away from the state?
Oh yes, education must be kept. For instance, these organizations like the UGC or the NCERT, they should be dominated by intellectuals who know and members who understand. I could give examples also. For instance, if you want to have a historian in the NCERT or in the Universal Grants Commission, then you have to have a historian like Ramila Thapar. But you mention Ramila Thapar to any RSS man, his temperature will rise to 105 at once, because they can't stand the name of Ramila Thapar. Because she is against the inglorious past of India, what we term as glorious past, I remember I wrote once about criticism of Salil Sarabji. Salil Sarabji wrote an article, and he said then he concluded his article by saying that if you do that, then India's past, golden past, will be written in gold. So one day I met him in a party. I told him, I said, you could have managed to do without that journalistic this thing. क्या journalistic मैंने कहा आपको मालूम है? No. He said, no, you see, it is only in India where 10,000 people from Iran came and a Hindu king gave us shelter. मैंने कहा, but it is in India only when, for instance, Jains were brutally treated by the Hindus or the Buddhists were brutally treated by Hindus. मैंने कहा ये सोली साहब, ये India's glorious past, yes, the real genuine glorious past will be written in gold, but not the kind of past that you are referring to, about which we don't know anything at all, So that is the kind of, for instance, human rights education to which you refer, what the NCERT or the UGC want to do, the formal education with regard to human rights. To every religion, but that is not secularism,
So there is no need for a God in our education, or is there a need of God in our education system?
We don't need a God in our education system, but unfortunately these government, state organizations like UGC and NCERT, do you know when our pundits started saying that there should be astrology be taught, then a university like JNU, they also, because they could not go against the government, so because their grants might be cut, so what they did, very clever thing, you see. God has not created more clever people than Hindus, let me tell you. They said, the JNU said, no, we are going to introduce astrology as part of Sanskrit studies. So astrology was introduced in the Department of Sanskrit. That's how they brought astrology to JNU. Otherwise, many universities rejected that government circular, UGC circular, to introduce astrology as a subject. So JNU rejected in this manner. They said Sanskrit department will teach astrology. We don't need any separate department.